Hello everyone and welcome to my channel Y&R Trends. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. You said. Lily says goodbye to Kane over Phyllis obsession. Announces GC exit? The Young and the Restless Y&R spoilers hint that Lily Winters Crystal Khalil may say goodbye to Kane Ashby Billy Flynn over his Phyllis Summers Michelle Stafford obsession. Kane may be devastated by Lily's announcement of her departure from Genoa City and the loss of all of their progress together. Although Phyllis is arguably more fixated than Kane is, there's no denying that he's drawn to her too. Kane just can't quit Phyllis, so that's a problem that'll need to be rectified before Kane can truly get on the path to a reunion with Lily. We have no doubt that Kane still loves Lily and wants to put their family back together. Kane, on the other hand, can't seem to get Phyllis out of the way long enough to have a real shot at Lily. Lily had a fun night with Kane when he attended the Abbott Communications relaunch as her +1. It was nice to see Kane and Lily engage in flirtatious banter without the previous tension. Tracy Abbott, Beth Maitland, also gave Lily some advice about embracing happiness. So that's what Lily seemed ready to do when she paid a visit to Kane's office in Y&R's December 23rd episode. Unfortunately, Phyllis was already there trying to make her latest pitch and work her magic on Kane. Lily was visibly unsettled at the sight of Phyllis and Kane's latest lip lock, especially since she thought she was getting somewhere with her ex. It seems like it's always one step forward and two steps back when it comes to Kane's efforts to reunite with Lily. Now that Lily's seen for herself that Phyllis still has some sort of twisted hold on Kane, she may not be eager to stick around and watch more of it. Witnessing Kane and Phyllis's most recent makeout session could be a turning point for Lily, as Crystal Khalil's maternity leave is likely to begin soon. Even though Lily and the twins haven't been able to set any holiday plans, this might inspire her to spend some quality time with them and leave town for a while. Lily may stun Kane with an abrupt goodbye soon, and make it clear that Phyllis is a big reason why. According to the Young and the Restless spoilers, Kane is in for more heartbreak. So stay with us for news updates. Kane sat in his office at Newman Enterprises, the hum of the city below barely registering as his thoughts swirled in a storm of confusion and longing. The events of the past week had left him reeling. He had thought he was making progress with Lily, that maybe, just maybe, they could reclaim some semblance of their past happiness. But seeing her walk into his office that morning, only to witness the tension between her and Phyllis, had thrown him back into that familiar pit of guilt and frustration. Kane knew he was drawn to Phyllis in a way he couldn't fully rationalize, and yet every time he found himself thinking about her, he also thought about Lily, his family, their twins, the life they had started to build together. Lily, meanwhile, was fighting her own inner battle. She had always been the strong one, the one who could see through lies and manipulations, but the repeated exposure to Kane's lingering feelings for Phyllis was starting to wear her down. Crystal Khalil's portrayal of Lily had always emphasized that quiet strength, that sharp wit, and that deep capacity for love, and now as she prepared for her upcoming maternity leave, it felt as though life was pressing her to make a decision. She couldn't remain stuck in a cycle where Kane's affections were divided, no matter how much she still loved him. The night at the Abbott Communications relaunch had been a fleeting moment of joy. Kane had been charming, attentive, and even a little playful. They had flirted, laughed, and for a few hours it felt like the old times, the times before heartbreak and deception clouded their relationship. Tracy Abbott's advice to embrace happiness had resonated with Lily, and for the first time in months, she felt a spark of hope. Yet that hope was fragile, quickly shattered when she stepped into Kane's office. Phyllis was there, radiant and calculating, her presence commanding Kane's attention in a way that made Lily's stomach churn. The sight of Kane leaning in, engaging in a moment of closeness with Phyllis, was almost unbearable. Lily tried to remind herself that Phyllis had always been manipulative, that Kane's heart ultimately belonged to her. Yet the undeniable attraction between Kane and Phyllis was staring her in the face. It wasn't just flirtation. It was an assertion of Phyllis's hold on him, a subtle but powerful reminder that some barriers couldn't easily be broken. Lily's mind raced. How many times could she forgive Kane's lapses, his inability to completely sever ties with Phyllis? How many times could she watch him give in, even briefly, to someone who was not their family, someone who had caused her so much pain? The answer was becoming painfully clear. Not anymore. Her maternal instincts, her desire to protect her twins from an unstable environment, were outweighing her romantic longing. She couldn't allow herself to be trapped in a triangle that had no definitive end, at least not an end she could control. Kane, sensing her unease, looked up from his desk, his brow furrowed, confusion and concern mingling in his expression. "Lily, hey, are you okay?" His voice was soft, tentative, betraying a vulnerability that rarely surfaced in the face of Phyllis's relentless charm. Lily took a deep breath, steadying herself. She knew what she had to do, even though it would hurt more than she wanted to admit. "Kane, we need to talk," she said, her tone calm but firm. She watched him straighten in his chair, realizing the gravity in her voice. I think it's time for me to step away for a while. From Genoa City. From this." Her gaze flickered to Phyllis, who was still present, oblivious to the emotional storm unfolding just a few feet away. Kane's eyes widened, a mix of disbelief and desperation crossing his face. "Lily, wait. You can't just leave. We've been making progress." "I've been..." His words faltered, caught between the truth he wanted to admit and the reality that Lily was already moving toward the exit. "I know, Kane," Lily said softly, shaking her head. "But it's not enough. I can't keep doing this hoping you'll finally choose me fully, when part of you keeps giving in to Phyllis. I love you, I always will, but I have to protect my heart, and my children deserve stability." Her words were gentle, yet each one cut deep, laying bare the truth that Kane had been avoiding for months. Kane ran a hand through his hair, frustration and heartbreak evident. "Lily, you know I love you. I've always loved you. I can't always control what I feel, okay?" Lily's eyes glistened with unshed tears, a testament to the inner turmoil she was trying to suppress. "And that's exactly the problem, Kane. Love isn't enough when it's constantly divided. You need to figure out what you want. And I can't wait around forever." The twins, though young, had been a constant reminder of the love and life Kane and Lily had shared. Every moment spent with them had strengthened her resolve to do what was right, even if it meant stepping away from the man she loved. She pictured the two little faces smiling up at her, their innocence untainted by adult conflicts, and she knew she had to prioritize them over her lingering romantic feelings. Kane stood, moving closer to her, desperation in every step. "Lily, please. Don't go. I can fix this. I can." "No, Kane," she interrupted gently but firmly. "You can't fix this unless you truly let go of Phyllis. And I don't think you're ready to do that. Not yet. So, I have to go. For me. For the kids." There was a long silence, heavy with the weight of unspoken regrets, missed opportunities, and love that still burned despite the circumstances. Kane's shoulders slumped, the fight leaving him as the realization sank in. Lily wasn't just leaving in the moment. She was leaving because she knew this cycle of heartache would continue unless he made a fundamental choice. Phyllis, sensing the tension and recognizing an opportunity, finally spoke, her tone dripping with calculated charm. "Well, Kane, looks like someone else finally realized what I've known all along. You can't resist me." Lily's expression hardened, but she didn't turn to engage with Phyllis. Instead, she focused on Kane one last time, her heart breaking. "Kane, please don't let her words make you forget who you are. Remember your family. Remember us. I hope one day you find clarity, but it can't be now." With that, Lily left Kane's office, the sound of the door closing echoing in the cavernous space like a final punctuation mark on a chapter that had spanned years. Kane sank back into his chair, the weight of her absence pressing down on him. He had loved Lily always, and yet his inability to resist Phyllis's pull had cost him everything. The twins' laughter from the last family gathering still rang in his ears, a bittersweet reminder of what was at stake and what he had risked losing forever. Over the following days, Genoa City felt emptier than usual. Kane wandered through his daily routines, attending business meetings, handling Newman Enterprises obligations, but the vibrancy he had once brought to each interaction was gone. Every corner of the city reminded him of Lily, her smile, her laughter, the way she had always been able to see through his defenses. Even Phyllis, who had once brought excitement and allure into his life, now seemed a reminder of the consequences of divided loyalties. Lily, in her new temporary haven away from the city, found a quiet solace she hadn't experienced in months. She spent her mornings with the twins, baking, reading, and simply being present in a way that life in Genoa City hadn't always allowed. Even the small, mundane moments, laughing over spilled milk, soothing tantrums, watching the children fall asleep, felt like a balm to her soul. Each day she reaffirmed the decision she had made, despite the ache in her heart and the unanswered questions about Kane's ultimate choices. Meanwhile, Kane struggled with the duality of longing and guilt. He wanted to reach out to tell Lily that he could change, that Phyllis didn't matter, that she and the children were his everything. Yet he also knew that real change required action, not words. The path to redemption, and potentially to Lily's forgiveness, was steep, uncertain, and fraught with the very temptations that had derailed him in the first place. Phyllis, ever cunning, continued to hover around Kane, her presence both comforting and corrosive. She offered her support in business matters, made subtle advances, and expertly inserted herself into Kane's thoughts and decisions. Kane was painfully aware of the pattern forming again, yet the memories of Lily's love, of her patience and understanding, kept pulling him in the opposite direction. He realized that if he didn't act decisively, if he didn't confront the truth about his feelings and his priorities, he would risk losing not only Lily but the life he had always dreamed of with her and the twins. One evening, as the city lights glittered below his penthouse, Kane sat alone, reflecting on the choices he had made. He opened his phone, staring at Lily's number, debating whether to call, text, or do nothing at all. The quiet apartment echoed with memories of happier times. Family dinners, playful arguments, tender moments in the nursery. For the first time in months, he acknowledged that love alone was insufficient. Without commitment, without clarity, without the courage to resist Phyllis's pull, he couldn't have the life he truly wanted. Kane's journey toward redemption and potential reconciliation was just beginning. Lily's departure, though painful, served as a catalyst, an ultimatum he hadn't asked for but desperately needed. And as the night deepened, one thing became clear: love, in all its messy, complicated, and often heart-wrenching forms, required choices, sacrifices, and the courage to confront one's own failings. Kane would have to rise to that challenge if he ever hoped to bring Lily back into his life, and to reclaim the family they had fought so hard to create. The days following Lily's departure were some of the most isolating Kane had ever experienced. Genoa City, which normally pulsed with energy, intrigue, and the occasional chaos that made it feel alive, now seemed like a gray, hollow shell. Every corner of Newman Enterprises reminded him of Lily's absence, the way she had effortlessly organized files, the cheerful banter they had shared in the break room, even the subtle scent of her perfume that lingered faintly in the air. It was a cruel irony that the office felt both familiar and alien at the same time. Kane tried to immerse himself in work, throwing himself into projects, meetings, and strategic plans with Newman Enterprises board. He was determined to maintain a sense of normalcy, but each day brought reminders of what he had lost. Even his colleagues noticed the change. The once charming, confident Kane now moved with a subdued energy, his usual sparkle replaced by a quiet tension. Phyllis, sensing the shift in Kane's demeanor, seized the opportunity to insinuate herself further into his life. Her visits became more frequent, her conversations more intimate, and her flirtations more pointed. She was careful, never overstepping, always leaving just enough ambiguity to make Kane question his own resolve. Every laugh they shared, every lingering touch on the hand, chipped away at his attempts to remain focused on the absence of Lily. Kane's inner conflict intensified. He loved Lily. There was no denying that, but Phyllis's presence had always ignited something primal, something undeniable that challenged his logic and his promises. He began to realize that, unlike Lily, Phyllis had perfected the art of emotional manipulation. She knew exactly when to push, when to retreat, and how to exploit Kane's vulnerabilities. And yet, despite knowing this, he couldn't completely disengage from her influence. Meanwhile, Lily embraced her temporary escape from Genoa City with a sense of cautious optimism. In her new surroundings, she found the quiet and peace that had eluded her for months. The twins were her anchor, their laughter and curiosity providing her with a grounding she desperately needed. She spent long mornings baking cookies, reading bedtime stories, and simply observing their small, innocent world without the constant interference of adult drama. Yet, even in her temporary haven, Lily couldn't entirely shut out thoughts of Kane. Memories of their past life, The moments of joy, the tenderness, and even the arguments flitted through her mind like ghosts. She allowed herself to grieve, to miss him, but she also reminded herself of the reason she had left: stability for her children and clarity for her heart. Each day she reaffirmed her decision, knowing that returning to Kane prematurely would only trap her in a cycle she could no longer endure. Back in Genoa City, Kane's attempts to distract himself began to unravel. He went through the motions of business meetings, financial planning, and corporate strategy, but every task felt meaningless without Lily's presence. He found himself staring at his phone, resisting the urge to call her, to plead for a second chance. Nights were the hardest. Alone in his penthouse, he replayed the moment Lily had left, her gentle yet firm words echoing in his mind, Phyllis's smug expression lingering like a shadow. Phyllis noticed Kane's internal struggle and took advantage of it subtly. She invited him to social events under the guise of professional networking, lingered a little too long in conversations, and shared personal anecdotes that nudged Kane toward emotional intimacy. Kane found himself laughing at her jokes, leaning in during conversations, and occasionally imagining what it would be like if Lily were there. The guilt that gnawed at him was almost unbearable, but he rationalized it. He wasn't leaving Lily, he was simply trying to cope. Meanwhile, Lily's days were punctuated by small but profound moments with her children. One afternoon, as she helped them build a gingerbread house, she caught herself smiling at the chaos of icing and candy scattered across the floor. In that moment, she realized that her decision to leave wasn't just about protecting herself. It was about giving her children a mother who could be fully present. The realization brought both relief and sorrow. Relief that she was making the right choice, and sorrow that Kane was now suffering in her absence. Kane, meanwhile, began to see the ripple effects of his divided loyalties. His interactions with colleagues became strained, his focus wavered, and even the simplest decisions felt fraught with difficulty. He recognized that he was trapped between two forces: the magnetic pull of Phyllis and the unwavering love he held for Lily. Each day the tension built, manifesting as sleepless nights, irritable moods, and moments of near despair. Phyllis, sensing the fragility of Kane's emotional state, escalated her subtle manipulations. She invited him to dinners, arranged private meetings, and even dropped casual comments about the life they could have together. Kane, torn between desire and conscience, found himself slipping further into her orbit. He knew he was risking everything, yet he felt powerless to resist the allure she presented. Lily, aware that her departure might be temporary, focused on building a sanctuary for herself and her children. She decorated her temporary home with warm colors, filled it with books and toys, and even established a small routine that provided a sense of normalcy. She allowed herself moments of vulnerability, confiding in a close friend about her doubts, fears, and longing for Kane. Yet, despite the emotional turbulence, she remained resolute. She would not return to Genoa City until Kane had made a definitive choice, until she knew that her family's emotional well-being would not be jeopardized by divided loyalties. As the weeks passed, Kane's longing for Lily intensified. He began to reflect on the life they had shared, the twins' first steps, the late-night conversations, the dreams they had woven together. He realized that Phyllis, despite her charms, could never replace the depth, stability, and unconditional love that Lily provided. The contrast became painfully clear. Phyllis was a tempest, beautiful and thrilling but ultimately destructive, while Lily was a harbor, safe and nurturing yet strong enough to weather any storm. One evening, after another day of futile attempts to focus on business, Kane found himself at a crossroads. He was sitting alone in his office, the city lights casting long shadows across the room, when he picked up a photograph of Lily and the twins from his desk. He stared at it for a long time, absorbing every detail. The way Lily's eyes sparkled, the twins' innocent smiles, the warmth of a moment frozen in time. His heart ached with a clarity he could no longer ignore. "I can't lose them," Kane whispered to himself, his voice heavy with emotion. "Not Lily. Not the kids. I have to fix this. I have to choose." The decision marked the beginning of a profound internal transformation. Kane realized that love without commitment was hollow, that desire without clarity led only to heartache, and that he could no longer allow himself to be ensnared by Phyllis's manipulations. The journey ahead would be difficult, filled with confrontation, accountability, and the arduous work of rebuilding trust, but for the first time, Cain felt a glimmer of hope that he could reclaim the life he had risked losing. Meanwhile, Lily's days continued in quiet fulfillment. She celebrated small victories with her children, cherished their laughter, and embraced the peace she had fought so hard to secure. Yet, she remained aware of Cain's presence in her mind and heart. She hoped that he would recognize the truth, that he would confront the consequences of his divided loyalties, and that one day they could find their way back to each other. In Genoa City, Phyllis sensed the subtle shift in Cain's demeanor. She realized, perhaps too late, that her influence over him was waning. Cain's longing for Lily, his introspection, and his acknowledgement of what truly mattered were eroding the hold she had once maintained. She felt a flicker of frustration, but also a calculated determination. If she could not keep Cain for herself, she would ensure that the path to reconciliation with Lily would not be easy. Cain, strengthened by his resolve, began to take decisive action. He reached out to mutual friends for guidance, sought quiet counsel, and reflected on past mistakes with brutal honesty. Each step he took was measured, deliberate, and aimed at repairing the fractures in his relationships. He understood that words alone would not suffice. Actions were required, and the road to redemption was steep and fraught with emotional landmines. As the days unfolded, the tension between desire and responsibility, love and temptation, became the defining theme of Cain's existence. His every thought revolved around Lily and the twins, Phyllis's manipulations, and the painful lessons of the past. Yet, amidst the turmoil, a sense of purpose emerged. Cain recognized that true love demanded courage, clarity, and unwavering commitment. Without these qualities, the life he yearned for would remain forever out of reach.